the 1619 project, you've heard me talk about it. You've heard there's some good information there, but you've heard my criticisms about it. And it's important for us to understand that much of what we've been told about Virginia's 1619 first Africans is wrong. Okay. Much of what we've been told about Virginia's 1619 first Africans is wrong. There's a good article from virginiamercury.com from August 11th, 2019 that deals with this. And in 1619, codified slave laws didn't exist in any of the 13 colonies. And a lot of people are so shocked when they hear this. The whole way that slavery evolved in this country and even the way race evolved in this country is different than the way we actually think it evolved. Okay. I mean, that gets also in the Bacon's Rebellion, 1675, 1676, in the colony of Virginia, what happens after Bacon's Rebellion and the introduction of the term white in the colony of Virginia around 1681 to break up the alliance between enslaved Africans, free African Americans, poor whites, white indentured servants, things of this nature. That all comes to a head in Bacon's Rebellion, where you have this rebellion of about 500 people of different races, different statuses, some enslaved Africans, some white indentured servants, etc. And they burned down the town of Jamestown, Virginia in 1676 because they were all being exploited on the tobacco plantations in Virginia. And they realized that they had a common enemy. They were being exploited by the ruling elite. Okay, this is Bacon's Rebellion. Then you go to 1705 and the Virginia slave codes of 1705, which is going to become a model, and other colonies are going to adopt these slave codes. And the Virginia slave codes of 1705 make a distinction between Negroes and Moors. So you get into this, you start dealing with a deep understanding of history, and you start seeing how all this evolves and nationalities and status, and start seeing how all of this evolves. Okay. So the way this history actually happens is much different than the way we think it happens. All right. Now, Africans were in South Carolina in 1526, 93 years before Virginia. Okay. Now, this is not talked about a lot. We focus on 1619, and I have to tell people, they say we first came to these shores 1619. No, we were here thousands of years before that. But even if you just look during the transatlantic slave trade, the Spanish were taking Africans into the territory we call South Carolina in 1526. Okay, now this is something we deal with all this in the class because we go through and look at this history chronologically. So these are all slides from the course that I teach, that I put together. I'm a historian, been studying history 32 years. I put together this curriculum as well as the second class that I teach, which is from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1800 to 1968, which goes through and goes deep into looking at that 168-year period of history and analyzing what happened to us also after slavery ended. Okay, now before 1619, there was 1526, the mystery of the first enslaved Africans in what became the United States. There's a good article from Washington Post, September 7th, 2019, that deals with this history. 1526 is not talked about a lot. Okay. And you had those Africans, there's going to be an uprising. They're going to overthrow their oppressors and they're going to run away. And it's believed they went to live with Native Americans. So it was the Spanish tried to set up the settlement, but it was a failed settlement. Now, Spanish explorers brought 100 African slaves to a doomed settlement in South Carolina or Georgia. Within weeks, the subjugated revolted, then vanished. Maybe that's why they don't want us to know about 1526, because those Africans overthrew their oppressors. So maybe that's why that's not talked about a lot. But that's 93 years before Jamestown, Virginia. And then in 1513, Juan Ponce de Leon, the Spanish conquistador, comes into Florida, and he has an African with him named Juan Garrido. Juan Garrido was born in West Africa around 1480. And Juan Garrido is probably the first African we know of by name probably the first African we know of by name in this land that we call the United States of America, or what Native Americans call Turtle Island. Turtle Island. And Dr. David Imhotep talks about Turtle Island in the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence.
Wow, and we should say, and we have a picture of the book too, and it's The First Americans Were Africans, and we were talking about Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, because I remember back in the 1980s, my dad took me to hear him. He came here to Cincinnati, and his book was They Came Before Columbus, and he talked about you know, how Africans were here. He had a lot of, I mean, great research information, and so it was just kind of eye-opening, but we haven't heard a lot about that recently. So tell us how you got involved here.
Well, I'm showing that Africans not only came before Columbus, they came before the Indians.
So you're going even farther back.
I'm going farther back, at least 56,000 years old.
Okay, now we've got a graphic up here about 130,000 years ago.
Yeah, well, they sailed over here. And when I lecture, people say, well, wait a minute, humans weren't sailing, let alone they weren't boating 130,000 years ago. And I beg to differ. Last year, New York Times quoted the BBC, and they wrote an article on how in Crete they have found a stone industry of stone tools going back to at least 130,000 years. And Crete has been an island in the middle of the Mediterranean for 5 million years. So they had to sail, and it was a continuous civilization, which means they were going back and forth. They knew how to navigate. So if they got to Crete 130,000 years ago, it's easy 70,000 years later that they could make it to the Americas at 56,000 years ago.
Right. That's really, now how did you even get back to this research? I mean, this is just, you know, did you start by reading They Came Before Columbus, and then you expanded on that research?
Yes. You see, that was 36 years ago, Dr. Van Sertima's book came out, and this information is piled on for 36 years. So many different things, so many cutting-edge articles and things have been found since then.
Yeah, and so, and what's the reaction you get when you talk about how Africans came here even before Native Americans?
People are amazed. They're shocked. They're shocked. First come shocks, and then they're smiling, and some frown, of course.
And then, you know, and what about the school systems? Because, you know, have we gotten this information to the educational system?
Not yet. The book has only been out for a month and a half.
And what kind of feedback are you getting, though, when you go around and talk about this? I mean, I'm assuming you're doing lectures around the country.
Yeah, well, I always bring my peer-reviewed articos.
Okay.
Because my thesis, which is the same as my title, The First Americans Were Africans, is backed up by 7, soon to be 8, peer-reviewed journal articles, which is the height of academia.
Wow. And so you've got credibility. I mean, people can see this research. What do you think? Do you think this is going to change history at all?
Well, for hundreds of years in Europe, people thought the world was flat, and it took a while for them to be able to say the world was round in order to go out there and navigate and see that it was indeed round. So it's going to take a little while for them to get around this, but it will happen.
And so what part of Africa were the Africans from who came to Brazil?
Well, the DNA, the Genome Project found that the earliest ones, the ones that they found in Tierra del Fuego, in the very tip of South America, in 1874, 1876, were the short Africans, the Khoisan, who spoke with clicks, like that. The Gods Must Be Crazy did a movie on that.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yes. So they have
about the Coca-Cola bottle that fell in, yeah.
Yes, they have the oldest DNA and the oldest language on the planet, and they were all over.
Oh, wow.
All over all 3 Americas, as well as Asia.
Well, have they done any DNA tests in Brazil to see that?
Yes, they have. The Genome Project went all around the world. There are 100,000 people participated.
Wow.
Taking DNA swabs.
And so first we know that it's possible to get over here by canoe, and second of all, the DNA from that group of Africans is in Brazil.
The most important thing, not to forget to ask me, well, I will tell you that, where do the Native Americans come from? Well, we've always been taught that they came across the Bering Straits from Asia. This is true, but they did not come until 3000 BC. There is no evidence of them coming before 3000 BC. So for 53,000 years, there were nothing but Africans in North, Central, and South America.
Wow.
When they come over 3000 BC, those two groups, the Africans and the Mongolians, get together, the Asians, get together, and their children are the Native Americans.
Wow.
This is why the Native Americans do not look Chinese. They are a little different than Chinese.
Right. Oh, that's, you know what, I mean, we need to learn. It makes a lot of sense, yes. Dr. Imhotep, and we need to learn our history.
Join me Saturday, February 17th, 2024, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for class number 2 of my 10-week online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understand the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. I'm Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. This is a 10-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and we have our lesson plan right here on our website. I have it uploaded. You can download it. Click right here to download our 10-week lesson plan. We deal with over 200 slides that I put together. We have 80 to 100 articles. There are 15 books that we reference. You don't have to buy any of the books. I show you excerpts on the screen of what we're citing. We look at excerpts of interviews I've done with many of our scholars, Professor James Small, Runoko Rashidi, Professor Kabahaya Watakamene, Tony Browder, etc. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, so we have a fantastic class planned for you on Saturday, February 17th, 2024. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded, so you can go back and watch at any time. It's a very visual class. The content is PG-13, so you can use this with your children also, okay? And even after the course is over with, a year from now, 2 years from now, you'll still have full access. You can still go back and watch the entire course, okay? So the class is on sale, $80, regularly $130. We have a preview of the class right here on the website as well that you can watch also. And we take you throughout history. We look at ancient Africa, we look at ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, Nubia, Ta-Nehisi, Ethiopia. We look at different African civilizations. We look at the 800-year occupation of Europe of the Africans by the Africans known as the Moors, who take the teachings from the Nile Valley region of Africa into Europe, and this brings Europe out of the Dark Ages. So when we study the transatlantic slave trade, we can't start in 1441 when the Portuguese get involved. We can't start in 1619 in Hampton, Virginia, or Jamestown, Virginia. We have to deal with thousands of years of history that leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Also, in class number 2, we'll deal with, talk a little more about the origins of Black History Month, African American History Month as well, okay? And for those in the Detroit area, on Sunday, February 18th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be speaking at St. Francis Missionary Baptist Church, located at 7021 West Warren Avenue in Detroit, Michigan. This is free and open to the public. And I'll be speaking about Black resistance movements, arts and entertainment, economic empowerment, and Black liberation theology, and looking at different ways that we fought back against oppression, fought back against white supremacy and racism throughout history. We know this year's annual theme for African American History Month, Black History Month, is African Americans and the Arts, okay? And the annual theme comes from ASALH, Association for the Study of African American Life and History. So you can come out to St. Francis Missionary Baptist Church if you're in the Detroit area, bring the family. That's Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me for my online history class as well on Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can also support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show, through Cash App, through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. We have a Cash App link right here. So when you click on it, it takes you to our QR code. And our tag is $ the AHN Show, SHOW. These other ones here are fake African History Network Cash App accounts that have been stealing money from us. So I'm trying to get them shut down. Ours is $ the AHN Show, SHOW. We have a PayPal link here as well, okay? Listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our social media platforms. And also click right here to listen to podcasts for the African History Network show, where you get your podcasts from. So, and you can listen to archived episodes. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, email me at ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, ahnshow@theafricanhistorynetwork.com, or you can email me right through the website, right at the top of the page, at the menu. Just click on contact African History Network, contact the African History Network right here, and you can contact us right through the website. Okay. All right. Listen to the African History Network show Sundays 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Watch me Fridays 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Download the app. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behaviors. Not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Hope to see you in class. Talk to you next time. Peace.